Hi there, historians. Brian here with you again today as we explore the powerful effects of nationalism in 19th century Europe. Previously, we focused on the failure of conservative leaders who tried to maintain the old world order and the separation of national groups like Greece and Hungary from larger states. But nationalism wasn't just a tool of separation. In the 1850s and 60s, two emerging powerhouses in Europe were forged from national identities: Italy and Germany. Unification had a profound impact, particularly on the balance of power established by the Congress of Vienna. Our guiding questions for today are: what were the results of the failed revolutions of 1848 and the Crimean War? How did Realpolitik leaders like Count Camillo de Cavour and Otto von Bismarck manipulate foreign and domestic relationships to bring about unification? And how was the balance of power maintained by the concert of Europe disrupted by the unification of Italy and Germany? For the big picture, think about this. How was nationalism fundamentally at odds with the balance of power achieved by the Congress of Vienna? You've learned that nationalism took hold as a part of a liberal or radical ideology in much of Europe. In 1848, several liberal revolutions supporting elected representation and universal suffrage for landowning men failed to take hold. This left conservatives who supported centralized rule by the elites back in control by 1849. This began in France, where a liberal revolution led to the creation of a second republic, headed by Emperor Napoleon III. Similar revolutions occurred throughout Central Europe, pushing for constitutions that would unify larger states and grant more rights to their people. In 1848, the Frankfurt Assembly, composed of elected representatives from the German Confederation, met in northern Germany. At the meeting, they drafted a liberal constitution but could not convince conservative German rulers to adopt it. People in several states took up arms, but rebellions were squashed and the old order remained throughout the region. Revolts in Italian states hoping to create a unified Italy failed as Austrian forces crushed revolutionaries in Lombardy and Venetia. So, while the spirit of nationalism was strong, in practice, the revolutions of 1848 failed to produce much change. Then, Russia's involvement in the Crimean War led to distrust between the European powers and to the demise of the concert of Europe. The planned balance of power was compromised. Let's review. What were the results of the failed revolutions of 1848 and the Crimean War? The failed revolutions left conservative leaders in charge of states with increased revolutionary fervor, and the Crimean War upset the balance of power and ended the concert of Europe. By the 1840s, the strongest Italian state was Piedmont Sardinia. It had just adopted a liberal constitution. Italians hoping to unify looked to Victor Emmanuel II, King of Sardinia, to expel Austria, which at the time held a variety of territories in Italy. The prime minister was Count Camillo de Cavour. Though successful at expanding the kingdom's economy, it was not strong enough to wage war against the Austrians alone. Cavour looked to the French. He brokered an alliance with Emperor Napoleon III, then went to war with Austria in 1859. Combined French-Sardinian forces won most Austrian lands in the north. Some lands were given to France. Venetia was retained by Austria, and Lombardy was taken by Sardinia. Liberals in Parma, Modena, and Tuscany overthrew their governments and joined Sardinia the following year. Meanwhile, Cavour supported an Italian nationalist, General Giuseppe Garibaldi, as he took control of Sicily. Garibaldi's forces continued into mainland Italy, uniting more regions with Sardinia. To promote unification, he then stepped aside, allowing Victor Emmanuel to rule the Kingdom of Italy in 1861. In 1866, Italy finally ousted Austria from the peninsula. The last holdout were the Papal States, which unified with Italian forces seized in 1870. Thinking about our essential question, how did Cavour manipulate foreign and domestic relationships to bring about Italian unification? Cavour turned to French Emperor Napoleon III for help fighting Austria. At the same time, he assisted Italian revolutionaries defeat local rulers in other Italian provinces, promoting Victor Emmanuel II as the rightful king of all Italian regions. Germans went through their own unification process in the 1860s as well. Remember that German refers to an ethnic group of people speaking Germanic languages in Central Europe, and Prussia was a German state. In 1861, Wilhelm I rose to power in Prussia, the strongest state in the German Confederation aside from Austria. Prussia's parliament refused Wilhelm's request for funding that would allow him to improve the Prussian military. Wilhelm saw this as a challenge to his authority, so he turned to the Junkers, who were staunchly conservative members of Prussia's wealthy landowning class that supported him. So Wilhelm appointed a Junker named Otto von Bismarck as prime minister. Bismarck believed in Realpolitik, a system of politics based on practical goals rather than moral or ideological concerns. He is credited with saying,
"Politics is the art of the possible, the attainable, the art of the next best."
In other words, instead of striving for the perfect future based on what was right or just, he focused on accomplishments he thought he could actually achieve. In his first speech as prime minister, he said,
"It is not by means of speeches and majority resolutions that the great issues of the day will be decided, but by blood and iron."
Unsurprisingly, he became known as the Iron Chancellor. In 1864, Bismarck formed an alliance with Austria and provoked war with Denmark. He took the provinces of Schleswig and Holstein for Prussia, winning respect from other Germans. Bismarck then intentionally ignited border conflicts with Austria in 1866 over Schleswig and Holstein so that Austria would declare war on Prussia to settle the dispute. Prussians won easily with superior training and equipment. Prussia then took control of northern Germany, uniting eastern and western Prussia for the first time. Remaining states joined the North German Confederation. By 1867, only a few southern Catholic states remained, resisting Protestant Prussian control. Bismarck analyzed the situation and believed that he could gain southern support if there was an outside enemy that they could unite against. So, Bismarck fabricated one. He gave the impression that the French ambassador to Prussia had insulted Wilhelm I and made a big deal about it. The scandal led France to declare war on Prussia in 1870. Getting the French to declare war just as Austria had done allowed Bismarck to paint the French as the aggressors and ask southern Germans to help Prussia. Prussia dominated the French, taking over 80,000 prisoners, including Napoleon III himself. German nationalistic pride swept through Prussia and the southern states and was the last step needed for German unification. Wilhelm I was crowned Kaiser at the Palace of Versailles, and the empire became known by Germans as the Second Reich. Revisiting our essential question, how did Otto von Bismarck manipulate foreign and domestic relationships to bring about German unification? The way unification occurred was irrelevant to Bismarck as long as it helped him achieve his goal. For example, he called on Austria for help regaining territory in Denmark, but then fought against Austrians to promote national fervor. He then created a French enemy out of thin air to gain support from Southern Catholics that didn't want to join the German state. The Congress of Vienna had created 5 great powers in Europe: Britain, France, Austria, Prussia, and Russia. In 1815, they were fairly equal in strength. Wars of the mid-19th century changed that. Let's revisit our last essential question. How was the balance of power maintained by the concert of Europe disrupted by unification of Italy and Germany? Prussia, which joined with other states to form Germany, grew immensely in power. Russia and Austria were severely weakened, and Italy joined the fray as a new power. By 1871, Britain and Germany were clearly the strongest powers, militarily and economically, and there was no balance. The balance of power established at the Congress of Vienna was gone, and European stability was in upheaval. The rapidly changing world and the individual's place within it was explored in the art of the time, and that's what we'll be exploring next. Until then, remember that history is everywhere.
Hey, hey.